أهلا وسهلا في اليوم الثاني من مؤتمر مواطن الديمقراطية في الساحة العامة. نبدأ الجلسة الثانية، الجلسة الأولى من اليوم الثاني بمحاضرة ضمن الديمقراطية والهيمنة، مقاربة تجاوز حد الدورتين في الانتخابات الرئاسية في أفريقيا من منظار القانون الدولي، ويقدمها الأستاذ كواديو أبيجي أتوا. فليتفضل.
Thank you and good morning. My presentation is on a critical review of third termism in African politics from an international law perspective. At some generations of constitution making in Africa, and to examine the extent to which it connects to international law when we come to talk about recognition in international law. And so I'll begin by examining the four main generations of constitution making, and then focus on some changes which I think needs to be brought into the picture, looking at the fact that the democracy as we are experiencing in Africa today, or in most African countries, is imported and imposed, and therefore it does not reflect critically the indigenous perspectives of human rights and democracy. And so the first democratic experiment we had was at the time of independence, when most of the liberal constitutions we had were inherited through negotiations with the colonial authorities. I don't know if somebody is working on the slides for me. Or I have to do it. No, mine is not connected for me. Okay, so 4 generations of constitution making in Africa. The first one is what we had at the time of independence. And then that one embodied human rights provisions and multi-party democracy and all these, the rule of law and other elements you can find in a typical constitutional or democratic constitution. Then, immediately after, a few years after independence, the situation changed because African political leaders realized that they couldn't, the governance system couldn't fit into this imported Western system of governance. And so in this place, we had authoritarian constitutions which had some of these features: the introduction of one-party rule, no room for tribalism, no civil society, no dissent, and then we have life presidencies, presidents appointed for life. There were exceptions in a few countries, as you can see on the board. Then the OAU came into being, and then when the OAU came into being, that's the Organization of African Unity, which was born in 1963, 6 years after the first African country became independent. The OAU endorsed this approach of taking out recognition of human rights. Shall we move to the next slide? And taking away references to human rights, democracy, and so on within the Constitution, and then focusing on concepts which sought to recognize sovereign equality of states and non-interference in internal affairs of states as a means of creating a buffer to prevent other countries or even the OAU itself from criticizing what is happening within the territorial confines of a particular country. So there was no room for change through the electoral system. And so the results were coup d'etat. And the results indicate that nearly 3/4 of the African leaders who left power in the 60s and 70s did so through a coup d'etat, a violent overthrow, or an assassination. And so that became the trend of changing governments in Africa within the 60s and 70s. I'm not going at pace with the slides. Otherwise, I can just forget about the slides and so that it will not disturb the flow. Okay, so can we move to the next slide, please? Now, as a result of this, and in international law, when there is change of government, the rule is that there has to be what we call recognition of governments. When governments come to power through unconstitutional means, then it behooves on the international community whether to accept this change or not. And as a result, the OAU position was that it did not give any clear-cut criteria on how to recognize governments that come to power through coup d'etat. So the practice was swayed by the influence of various OAU chairmen at the time. And it was more about the personality of the person that dictated who should be in charge or not. I think we are not going with the slides because it's disturbing my flow. So coup d'etat became the principal means of changing government. And the statistics indicate that there were 80 successful coup d'etat, 108 failed coup attempts, and 139 reported coup plots between 1956 and 2001. Now, it got to a point where coup d'etat as a means of changing governments was having some challenges. So at certain points, people or the opposition had to import mercenaries from outside their countries to help them change governments. And so in response to that, in 1972, the OAU came up with a treaty that sought to abolish mercenarism in changing governments in Africa. Then followed another means of changing governments emerged in Africa, apart from coup d'etat and mercenarism. Also, rebel activity also became a means of changing government. So we had that situation happening in places like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and so on, where Charles Taylor, as you may know, he's still in prison in UK, sought to change government through these means. Then there were some few places where they began to organize elections to change government. But then after the elections had been held, the incumbent refused to leave power. So we had such examples such as happening in Nigeria and in the Côte d'Ivoire and Zimbabwe, Kenya, and so on, where after the elections, the incumbent refused to concede defeat and leave power. More recently, we had one in the Gambia at the beginning of this year. So then after this period, after the second generation, we entered into the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union, which led to the globalization phase, and then it opened up the third generation of constitution making in Africa. That is when there was a return to democracy. And again, we see a re-emergence of multi-party rule, civil society activism, elections being held on a regular basis, and so on, as a means of changing government. And so in the post-Cold War era, we have multi-partyism and constitutionalism, human rights, good governance coming into the picture. Now, what is interesting about this is that around this time, coup as a means of changing government was on the decline. But still, there was a new phenomenon That is when leaders refuse to leave office after elections. And so between 1990 and 2010, there were about 20 countries that made the transition to democracy. But in about a quarter of them, they refused to leave office after elections had been held. And so that created a new phenomenon where there were problems in changes in government in Africa. Then in 1997, there was a watershed moment in the sense that there was a change in government in Sierra Leone. And this government came about, the change in government came about through rebel activity. But then for the first time, the ECOWAS, that is the Economic Community of West African States, this is a regional bloc for countries within the sub-region, decided to not to recognize the new government that had come to power through the civil war and rebel activity. And so that was seen as the beginning of the OAU standing up against unconstitutional changes in government. So the OAU came up in 2000 with what we call the Lomé Declaration, the Lomé Declaration of 2000. And this declaration identified 4 modes of unconstitutional changes in government. The first one is where there is a military coup d'etat, as we have already mentioned. The second one is intervention by mercenaries. The third is replacement of democratically elected governments by dissident groups or rebel movements. Then the fourth, the refusal by an incumbent government to relinquish power to the winning party after free, fair, and regular elections. So these means of unconstitutional changes were recognized officially by the OAU, that if you come to power through any of these means, you will not be recognized as a new government. Now, what that meant was that it brought into question how we should deal with recognition in governments. So recognition simply means a political act by a government to recognize the existence of a new regime that has come to power. And this is more or less a political act. It is not based on law. But for international organizations, we also have what we call collective recognition. And that is whether that international organization should recognize the new regime that has come to power. In the case of the OAU, it never sought to have a clear-cut definition of how to recognize or not to recognize a new government that has come to power. And so the same manner, when it came to changes in government, there was always a situation where sometimes the old regime and the new regime will both present themselves at an OAU session. And we have to decide who should be allowed to sit to represent the country. And so that created always a challenge. Whether it's a coup d'etat, who should represent the country at an OAU conference or session. Now, as we know in international law, when there is a new regime coming to power through unconstitutional means, what happens is that the government that is overthrown is given de jure recognition. That is, in law, it is still the properly recognized government, while the new government that has come to power through illegitimate means is recognized de facto. That is, it is a government that on the ground seems to be in control, and therefore we adopt a wait-and-see policy to see if it will be able to claim legitimacy from the people and then be allowed to govern. Now, what happened with the Lomé Declaration is that the OAU decided to say that, decided that the new regime that has come to power through unconstitutional means will be given 6 months to return the country to constitutional rule. And then this new regime can take part in, please, we are far behind this, so it's not helping us. The one who is controlling the
اطفي الباوربوينت، مش بطل بحاجة له.
Okay, so I think it's not. So the Lomé Declaration said that if a new government comes to power, the new government will be given 6 months within which to return the country to constitutional rule. And then after that, the government, but then the regime that has been overthrown will not be allowed to take part in the new elections. And so that model was what prevailed until the OAU finally died out in 2002, being replaced by the African Union. The African Union recognized in its Constitutive Act the need for recognition of new rules, which also recognize the fact that you cannot come to power through unconstitutional means. And then it called for suspension of membership if you come to power through unconstitutional means, but then you will still have to pay your dues as a member of the African Union. Now, this is where we are now, is where the main issue comes into play. In most of the constitutions that African leaders adopted, or African states adopted after the fall of the Berlin Wall, there were term limits. Most of them had presidential 2-term limits. And in about 75% of the cases, that was the norm. But then a few years into the adoption of these new constitutions, that is, we are talking about the 3rd generation now, we saw a situation where African leaders began to move away from the norm again. And so in 24 of the cases, there were attempts to change the 2-term limit to either 3 terms or indefinite terms. And in 15 of these countries, they were successful. That is Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Chad, Gabon, Guinea, Namibia, Niger, Rwanda, Senegal, Togo, Uganda. They were able to change the term limits within the constitution to a 3rd term or indefinite terms. But this is contrary to what were the wishes, or what are the wishes of the citizenry, because a survey done indicated that 75% of Africans were in support of term limits. So 2 terms, you are done, and then you go away, then somebody else will take over. But on the contrary, African leaders were showing signs of going in the opposite direction. That is, changing the constitution to allow for 3 terms or indefinite terms. They did this through different means, either going through a referendum, or changing it through parliament, or going to the Constitutional Court for interpretation, which most of them they knew they would win, and therefore the Constitutional Court would determine that the government can go for a 3rd term. Now, attempts were made to limit this 3rd termism in Africa. One was through a treaty which came up in 2012 called the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. It said that if a government comes to power and the constitution recognizes a number of terms, the government should stick to those terms, and if it changes it, it will be in violation of the treaty. So that was one means. Then in such a case, what will happen is that the Peace and Security Council of the AU will impose sanctions on such a government. But up to now, nothing has been done even though there have been at least 15 cases of changes in the terms. Then also, the West African Union, called ECOWAS, also last year sought to come up with a declaration to limit the 3-term, to confirm the 2-term limits and limit 3rd termism, but it wasn't successful. And so it comes to a point where the 3rd termism is still ongoing in a number of African countries today. As a result, statistics indicate that democracy in Africa is waning. In fact, according to a survey done by Freedom House, it's concluded that there are only 6 liberal democracies in Africa today. And of these, there are also 5 electoral democracies, in a sense that they only hold elections, and that is all the criteria for determining whether the country is democratic or not. Okay, I understand my time is up. And so the question is third termism. How do we deal with the matter? Third termism always, anytime, in any of the countries where third termism had been proposed, it has led to various or serious human rights violations. So the question is, should we allow third termism or we shouldn't allow it? There have been several debates around this, and I'll round up with my position. And my position is that third termism is similar to the life presidencies we had during the first generation of constitution making in Africa. And if you look at the African culture, there has been this monarchical system where governments, kings and queens rule for as long as they are alive. And so that has been something that African leaders have also sought to adopt. And that is what is prevailing in the third termism as we are talking about here. For me personally, there's nothing wrong with third termism so long as it does not lead to violation of human rights. And therefore, for that to work, there has to be special arrangements where governments can be given longer periods to rule in government. And then their powers will rather be limited so that it will give room for them to enjoy the privileges they enjoy while in power. But then it will not be, most of the decision making will rather be based with the legislative powers or the legislative organs, so that the executive will be given longer periods to stay in power, so that it won't lead to violations of the Constitution, violations of human rights, and so on. But at the same time, power will not rest fundamentally with the executive. This way, it can help limit corruption, and it can also protect human rights within these countries. And it will help to ensure that Africa will be able to carve out a kind of democracy that is in line with its culture and with its history and with its identity, so that it will be able to move the country these countries forward, to promote stability and to promote orderliness. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. شكرا جزيلا. شكرا على المداخلة كواديو، اللي هو محاضر رئيس في كلية الحقوق في جامعة غانا في أكرا وعضو نقابة المحاميين. سنناقش لاحقا مداخلته اللي في المحصلة اللي بيجاوب على السؤال إنه أحيانا بيربطوا الدورة أو فتح المجال للدورة الثالثة كأنها شبيهة بأنه يبقى في وظيفته كرئيس للجمهورية لطول العمر، وقدم نظرية إذا فهمتها صحيح باتجاه أنه قد يكون هذا ممكنا شريطة أنه نضع قيود لضمان عدم انتهاك حقوق الإنسان ومحاربة الفساد. يعني نظرية إذا كان أنا فاهمي صحيح لها مهمة وممكن نناقشها لاحقا. شكرا جزيلا. المداخلة الثانية بلال الشوبكي بتقدمها عنه روان فرحات من جامعة الخليل. التحول الديمقراطي العنيف كاستجابة طبيعية للعنف البنيوي، مدخل نظري في ضوء ما يجري عربيا. تفضلي.
صباح الخير. شكرا دكتور عاصم. يعني يسعدني أن أقدم ورقة دكتور بلال الشوبكي حول التحول الديمقراطي العنيف كاستجابة طبيعية للعنف البنيوي. نقف اليوم على بعد عقد أو نصف عقد تقريبا من بداية الربيع العربي، ويبدو للمراقب أن كثيرا من الحناجر التي لفظت الظلم والاستبداد عقودا طوال وصدحت بأعلى صوتها مطالبة بسقوط الأنظمة الاستبدادية في دول الربيع العربي قد آثرت الصمت مؤخرا، وآثرت على نفسها الانسحاب إلى خانة مكممي الأفواه طوعا. وسواء كانت هذه الحناجر للنخبة أم للعامة، فقد وصل حال بعضهم أن يكونوا أدوات إعادة إنتاج أنظمة القمع بملامح ثورية. هذه مقدمة لورقة الأستاذ بلال، وعليها يمكن تلخيص ما يجري في أو ما جرى في دول الربيع العربي على أنه تكاتف قوى الفساد في كل دولة مع بقايا النظام وخصوصا الأمنية والعسكرية فيها، وتلقيها الدعم الكامل من قوى الفساد من قوى الفساد العابرة للحدود القطرية، وخصوصا تلك القوى المتمثلة في الأنظمة الرسمية التي خشيت وصول الثورة إليها، حيث نجحت هذه القوى مجتمعة في خلق ظروف اقتصادية اجتماعية وسياسية، وباستخدام الماكينة الإعلامية لتصيغ الكثير من التهيؤات للمواطن العربي بأن الحالة تسير إلى الأسوأ، وتحصر العقل العربي في خيارين لا ثالث لهما، إما القبول بحالة الظلم والاستبداد كما كانت عليه، أو الانجرار إلى حرب أهلية. بكلمات أخرى يمكن أن نقول أن هذه هي استجابة طبيعية لاعتقاد غير السليم بأن التحول الديمقراطي هو عملية تغيير تدريجية وسلمية وسلسة في كل الأحوال، كما هي استجابة طبيعية لعدم الفصل بين العنف وسبب العنف أو مصدره الأصلي، كأن يساوي من يرى نفسه حكما بين العنف البنيوي المنبعث من كل خلايا النظام بصور متعددة والعنف المضاد من قبل القوى الإصلاحية. تأسيسا على هذا المشهد وما تم تقديمه، تأتي هذه الورقة لتقدم مدخلا نظريا لتفسير التحول الديمقراطي المتسم بالعنف البنيوي في بعض مراحله، علها تقدم للقارئ العربي ما يخرجه من دائرة التصورات غير الدقيقة عن عملية التحول الديمقراطي. وتبني هذه الورقة نموذجها التحليلي على ما قدمه دان كورتروستو في هذا المجال، باعتبار أن التحول الديمقراطي لا يتأسس إلا على تشكيل هوية جامعة للقوى الطامحة للتغيير لتدخل حالة من المواجهة مع النظام السلطوي دون أن تخلو هذه المواجهة من العنف، على أن مدة التغيير وصولا إلى حالة ترسيخ القيم الديمقراطية والتعود عليها مرهونة ببنية القوى المساندة للتغيير وعلى بيئة التحول إجمالا. تقوم هذه الدراسة أو هذه الورقة أو تطرح فرضية مفادها أن التحول الديمقراطي في دولة يعتبر العنف فيها بنيويا والنظام فيها منكر لسلطويته أو زاعم بامتلاكه مشروعا إصلاحيا سيتخلله عنف متعدد الصور من قبل قوى الإصلاح، وهو عنف، وهنا نقطة مهمة، هو عنف لا يتساوى من حيث عقيدة القائمين عليه أو صوره مع عنف الأنظمة الرسمية في أي حال، ولا يمكن اعتبار العنف هنا بديلا يقابل بقاء الوضع على ما هو عليه قبل الربيع العربي، وإنما طريقا فرضتها خصائص الأنظمة السلطوية والهجينة للوصول إلى بديل يناقض الوضع بما كان عليه قبل الربيع العربي. مدخل مفاهيمي العنف والعنف البنيوي. تبني هذه الورقة تحليلها ونقاشها على قناعة بأن ما جرى ويجري في الوطن العربي من حراكات جماهيرية في سياق الربيع العربي هي ثورة حقيقية على السلطوية والاستبداد، وهي تعبير عن رغبة عامة ومخطط للنخبة وإن كان متأخرا لتجاوز هذه المرحلة، إلا أن مشكلة عملية التغيير هذه تمثلت في فقدها لشرطين أساسيين للتغيير، هما أن التغيير السياسي قائم على الوعي بالوضع القائم والوعي بما يجب أن يكون عليه الحال، ولم يظهر أي مؤشرات من القوى الثورية تمكننا من الزعم بأنها تمتلك تصورا عاما عما يجب أن يكون عليه الحال إن تمت مرحلة التغيير وتجاوزت هذه القوى المرحلة الانتقالية. بالنسبة للقراءات التاريخية لعمليات التحول الديمقراطي تشير إلى تباين صارخ بين الدول في شكل وفترة ودوافع وأطراف التحول، وأيضا تبعا لمتغيرات عدة، إلا أن بلورة نموذج جديد يتطلب بداية تحديد المشكلة التي باتت عقبة كأداة في طريق التحول الديمقراطي. وفي هدي الإيجاز الذي تفرضه هذه الورقة، فإنه يمكن تلخيص المشكلة الأساسية في اعتبار البعض أن النقطة الزمنية التي سقط فيها رأس النظام هي ذاتها التي بدأ فيها عصر الديمقراطية، وهو ما يعني أن كل المكونات المجتمعية التي بقيت متماسكة وفاعلة بعد هذه النقطة ستصبح جزءاً من رسم المشهد الديمقراطي، رغم كون بعضها ليست سوى بقايا عهد الاستبداد. والحال كذلك، فإن كثيرا من الجهد الذي كان يفترض أن يوجه نحو بناء نظام ديمقراطي سينصب على عقد تسويات بين القوى المساهمة في هذا التشكيل، وفي ظل اختلاف الهدف جوهريا، بحيث لا يمكن أن تصل هذه القوى إلى تصور واحد عن النظام الجديد. فبينما تريد القوى الثورية الإصلاحية نظاما جديدا لا تربطه صلة بالماضي، تريده القوى التي انفضت عن مناصرة النظام بعد سقوط رأسه والتفت حول الثورة إعادة إنتاج للاستبداد والسلطوية، أو استنساخا لتجارب تحديث الاستبداد. يعتمد البعض في تقييمه أو في قراءته لما يجري عربيا على أنها حرب أهلية، حيث أن توفر عدة عناصر تشير إلى أنها حرب أهلية يدعم هذا التصور. وأهم هذه العناصر التي تشكل نقطة فاصلة هو استخدام العنف المتبادل وبصور متعددة في هذه المواجهة، مما دفع البعض إلى التساؤل حول مدى إمكانية اعتبار قوى التغيير والثورة كقوى إصلاحية في الوقت الذي لجأت فيه إلى استخدام العنف كحال الأنظمة الاستبدادية والسلطوية. وهو تساؤل كما يطرح في هذه الورقة يراد منه الزج بكل أطراف النزاع داخل نفس الإطار، ودمج كل صنوف العنف في بوتقة واحدة دون النظر إلى دوافعه وأشكاله. بتجاوز الجدل حول الدلالات اللغوية لكلمة العنف أو الأسس الفلسفية التي فسرت اللجوء إليه، كما ورد في أفكار ماركس وهوبز وفرويد وغيرهم، يمكن القول تلخيصا أن العنف عموما هو أي سلوك أو موقف فيزيائي أو عاطفي أو لفظي أو مؤسساتي أو بنيوي أو روحي من الممكن أن يؤذي أو يحط من القيمة أو يدمر الذات أو الآخر. فيما العنف البنيوي يظهر حين تمتلك بعض الجماعات أو الطبقات أو الأعراق أو الأمم قدرة على النفاذ إلى المقدرات والموارد والفرص أكثر من مثيلاتها، وهو مرتبط باللامساواة المتجذرة في البنى الاجتماعية والسياسية والاقتصادية التي تحكم المجتمع أو الدولة أو حتى العالم. بالانتقال إلى نموذج روستو كمدخل لتفسير العنف خلال التحول الديمقراطي، هناك سؤال واحد يشكل قاسما مشتركا لدى كثير من المراقبين والمهتمين: مفاده كيف لقوى الثورة أن تستخدم العنف ضد خصومها؟ أو ما الفرق بعد هذا الاستخدام بين مصلح ومستبد؟ والسؤال رغم كونه واحدا إلا أنه لم يصدر لذات الغاية من جميع من طرحوه، فمنهم من طرحه كسؤال جدوى بمقارنة السابق مع الحاضر، ولسان حاله يقول أن الأنظمة الاستبدادية السابقة أفضل بكثير من الحالة الراهنة والاجترار إلى حرب أهلية. ومنهم أيضا من طرحه مضللا أو مضللا، ولسان حاله يقول أنها بدأت ثورة إصلاحية لكنها سرعان ما سرقت من قبل قوى متشددة أكثر استبدادية من الأنظمة. ما يهم هنا أن استخدام العنف المباشر ماديا أو معنويا، سواء كان سؤال جدوى أو سؤال المضللين، من قبل قوى الثورة في أكثر من مكان أمر لا يمكن نكرانه، لكنه استخدام المضطر نتاجا لعدة عوامل. هي أولا كون الثورة مرحلة سابقة لنشوء الديمقراطية، فإن هذا يعني أن توقع اللجوء إلى أدوات ديمقراطية في التغيير ليس منطقيا، بل إن استخدام الأدوات الديمقراطية يعني أنه لا حاجة للثورة ولا مبرر للمواجهة مع الأنظمة، ما يتحكم بأدوات النزاع بيئته، وبما أنها بيئة غير ديمقراطية فإن أدواتها ستكون كذلك. ثانيا، إن معظم شعوب الدول السلطوية قد عاشت عقودا تشربت فيها ثقافة العنف والاستبداد نتاجا لعنف بنيوي أو مباشر، وتمدد هذا العنف من الدوائر السياسية ليصل إلى كافة الدوائر الاجتماعية، مما يعني أن مسألة العزوف عن العنف لا ترتبط بقرار يتحكم بأدوات النزاع بقدر ارتباطها بتنشئة جديدة وقانون صارم. ثالثا، الأهم من ذلك أن عنف قوى الثورات لم يكن عنفا مبادرا، وإنما ردة فعل على حقبة طويلة من العنف البنيوي. رابعا، القوى الراديكالية الدخيلة على الثورة وما أقدمت عليه من دموية ساهمت في تكريس بيئة العنف، ولم تعد العزلة خيارا، إذ أن المواجهة في هذه الحالة قصرية. مع ذلك يبقى تفسير اللجوء إلى العنف وفقا لهذه العوامل قاصرا، إذ أنه يأتي في سياق الفعل ورد الفعل دون تفسيره في سياق عملية كاملة أو نموذج واضح للتغيير. وعليه أن إدراج نموذج روستو في التحول الديمقراطي في هذه الدراسة لا يأتي كادعاء بأن هذا النموذج يمثل المدخل الأمثل للتحول الديمقراطي، وأن على الشعوب العربية السير وفقا لمثل هذا النموذج، بل هو مدخل فقط لتفسير حالة العنف المستمرة في دول الربيع العربي، أي أن اللجوء إلى مدخل روستو قائم على اعتقاد بأن المتغيرات المتسارعة على الساحة العربية وفي المشهد العربي هي جزء من عملية تحول ديمقراطي ما زالت مستمرة. وإذا كان لابد من الإشارة إلى الدول التي استخدم فيها العنف وعبرت نحو الديمقراطية، فمن الممكن قراءة تجربة كوريا الجنوبية التي استمر فيها العنف لأكثر من عقدين وراح ضحيته المئات إلى أن استقر النظام السياسي فيها بشكله الديمقراطي حالياً. المشكلة التي تنبه لها روستو في إطار تمهيده لطرح النموذج الخاص به أن الظروف التي تشكلت في بلد ما في إطار البحث عن الديمقراطية قد أجبرت غير الديمقراطيين للانخراط في صفوف دعاة الديمقراطية، وهي مسألة مهمة تكاد تطابق ما يجري عربياً، إذ أن كثيرا من النخب التي نشأت في الدول العربية وفي دول الربيع العربي في ربوع السلطوية وساندتها ونطقت بلسانها وجدت ذاتها في مأزق الأفول، إذ لم تجد لها مقعدا خاصا في مركبة التحول. لكن روستو كان متفائلا وهو يقدم هذه الأفكار، إذ انتقل روستو في الطرح ليكون أكثر واقعية في اعتباره أن عملية التحول الديمقراطي ليس متوقعا منها أن تضم سياسيين متشابهين من حيث السلوك، إذ أن فكرة الديمقراطية قائمة بحد ذاتها على الاختلاف. روستو هنا لا يستثني النخب السلطوية من عملية التحول، بل يعتبرها أداة من أدواته. نظريا يبدو الأمر حالما، لكنه على أرض الواقع وبعد الكثير من المؤشرات يبدو محقا، إذ أن الديمقراطيين أمام خيارين لا ثالث لهما، فإما التصرف وكأن النخب ديمقراطية والبحث عن سبيل للمشاركة والاصطدام لاحقا بقيادتهم لمشروع مضاد، أو التعرف عليهم جيدا والبدء في مواجهة تفضي إلى الرضوخ للرغبة في التحول الديمقراطي. ميزة هذه الفكرة تكمن في انكشاف النخبة الممتدة عن الحقبة السلطوية أمام المجتمع وعدم منحها فرصة الظهور كطرف ديمقراطي. هذه الطريقة في التعامل مع النخب غير الديمقراطية والتي قد تكون على صور عدة كقيادات منتفعة من عهد الاستبداد أو اقتصاديين فاسدين أو غيرهم، تستجيب بشكل تلقائي ودون ما إشارة مباشرة إلى حقيقة استشراء العنف البنيوي في بعض المجتمعات واستمراره أحيانا بعد سقوط رأس هذه الأنظمة. ومن أبرز أشكال هذا العنف هو العنف التمييزي الذي أفرز شريحة أخذت في التوسع المستمر باحتكار مقدرات البلد الاقتصادية والسيطرة على عناصر التحكم والتوجيه من عسكر وأمن وإعلام. العنف البنيوي في هذه الحالة السابق واللاحق لبدء التحول سيقابله فعل شبيه في سعي أصحابه للتشبث والبقاء، احتكار مؤسسات البلد ومقدراتها من قبل فئة محتضنة اجتماعيا سيدفع لا محالة إلى محاولة اجتراح مؤسسات مقابلة تستوعب الديمقراطيين وأنصارهم، وإن اختلفت قدرات هذه المؤسسات، إلا أن وجودها كإطار غير قابل للنفاذ إلا من قبل فئة سياسية معينة يعني الدخول في سياق العنف التمييزي. نعني أن المواجهة المفتوحة قد تبدأ بين مجموعتين أو أكثر على المستوى الشعبي وبتوجيه نخبوي، وهي مواجهة عنيفة ماديا ومعنويا مع اختلاف الدرجات، وقد تدخل في منحنى غير مستقر تتحكم به عدة عوامل داخلية وخارجية، ونتيجة لمثل هذه العوامل التي قد تمتد لسنوات ستعتبر نقطة النهاية في المرحلة التحضيرية برضوخ القوى غير الديمقراطية دون سحقها، ونقطة البداية في المرحلة الثانية من مراحل التحول الديمقراطي وهي مرحلة اتخاذ القرار. مرحلة اتخاذ القرار تتشكل مع الانتقال من مرحلة التحضير التي شهدت غلبة طرف على طرف آخر، وقد تكون الخطوة جزءا من عملية تحول ديمقراطي لا انتكاس للعملية، لا بد أن تكون الغلبة لأنصار التحول الديمقراطي. بمعنى آخر هي عملية خلق الثقة بالنهج الديمقراطي بحيث تطمئن القوى جميعها بأن لديها فرصة في التقدم والمشاركة بل وحل نزاعاتها ديمقراطيا. إن هذا النموذج الذي يطرحه روستو ورغم أنه الأكثر قدرة على تفسير حالة العنف التي قد تتولد في بعض مراحل الثورات، إلا أنه لا يعتبر أن حالة العنف قد تنتهي بعد مرحلة القرار، على اعتبار أن التعود أو التأقلم كفيل ببناء ثقافة المجتمع بالنظام الجديد. تأسيسا على ذلك فإن هذه الورقة تطرح نموذجا يتطلب تمديد المرحلة الانتقالية ويستند على عدد من المبررات. أولها أن الدخول في مرحلة التعود اللاحقة للوحدة والقرار لا تعني بالضرورة أن القوى الراضخة للإجماع قد فقدت كل قوتها. ثانيا أن مرحلة القرار ونتيجة لتنوع المشاركين فيها قد لا تفضي إلى نظام جديد. ثالثا أن النموذج روستو يبدو متجاهلا لعامل الزمن، فالحقبة الطويلة من العنف المباشر والبنيوي لا يمكن أن تنتهي آثارها من خلال التعود أو التأقلم فقط. عربيا ما زالت الكثير من المناطق التي شهدت الربيع العربي في المرحلة التحضيرية التي أشار إليها روستو، ومنها ما شهد تجاوزا لهذه المرحلة بما يوافق طرحه أو يخالفه. ما يمكن إضافته إلى نموذج روستو هو تمديد عملية التحول في مرحلة ما بعد اتخاذ القرار أو تجزئتها إلى مرحلتين موسعتين، بحيث لا يتم فتح المجال مباشرة لدخول عناصر غير ديمقراطية للتفاعل وفق قواعد الديمقراطية في ظل امتلاكهم لمكتسبات العنف التمييزي البنيوي. أختم هذه المداخلة أو الورقة بالقول أن التحول الديمقراطي في ظل ظروف شبيهة بما تحويه بلدان الربيع العربي يحتاج عمليتين متكاملتين. الأولى تضمن انتزاع الحكم من النخب السلطوية وتسليمه إلى النخب الثورية. الثانية تضمين انتقال الحكم من النخب الثورية إلى الصفوة المنتخبة ديمقراطيا، حيث أن العملية الأولى من التحول الديمقراطي قد تكون عنيفة بالغالب، وهي عملية تسير وفق المراحل التي رسمها روستو، إلا أنها تتوقف عند مرحلة اتخاذ القرار، فيما تبدأ العملية الثانية بقرار جديد هو القرار الذي تحدث عنه روستو والقاضي ببناء نظام ديمقراطي تنخرط فيه كل التيارات الديمقراطية وغير الديمقراطية، لكنها في هذه الحالة لن تدخل النظام مكرهة أو حريصة على بقائها فحسب، بل ستدخله منزوعة الأنياب التي ورثتها عن العهد السابق، وفي هذه الحالة يصبح بناء النظام أكثر أمنا وعرقلة البناء محدودة بما يمكن من تحجيمها وإنهائها، كما تشمل العملية الثانية من التحول المرحلة الأخيرة التي تحدث عنها روستو وهي التعود والتأقلم. شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا. نقطتين بس بحطهم على الطاولة وبلكن بالنقاش. يعني من بين الأشياء اللي ذكرت بجوز يعني يكون عند البعض برضو نفس التساؤل، اللي هو الافتراض اللي ذكر في البداية على نجاح الثورات، إنه نعرف شرط تغيير الوضع القائم، وأن يكون عارفين وين راح يكون الوضع عليه بعدين. هاي بالضبط زي اللي احنا ببداية الجلسة كانت القاعة براد، بالضبط احنا مش مبسوطين من الوضع القائم وطلبنا التغيير. تخيلوا الشخص اللي بده يغير درجة حرارة الغرفة يشترط تغيير درجة حرارة الغرفة بأنه نكون احنا عارفين ايش درجة الحرارة المناسبة للقاعة. هذا تعجيزي، ومش ممكن نتوقع نجاح ثورة مرهون بمعرفة الأفق اللي قدامنا، لأنه نتيجته إحنا بس الثورة تنجح إذا غيرت الوضع القائم المرفوض، وفي حالتنا كان درجة حرارة غير مناسبة. بعدين بنشوف مع الوقت شو المناسب لنا. النقطة الثانية، أنا استغربت من ما ذكر، وأرجو يعني إذا في تعليق لاحقا والنقاش، من ربط إنه كل تغيير بالضرورة يؤدي إلى التحول إلى الديمقراطية، وأيضا الحديث عن الديمقراطية أثناء فترة التحول. مين حكى إنه لازم يكون ديمقراطي عملية؟ مين قال إنه لازم تكون عملية التحول نفسها ديمقراطية؟ إذا الغاية هي الوصول للديمقراطية، مين اللي بيحكي إنه التحول وأثناء مرحلة التحول بالضرورة يجب أن تكون ديمقراطية؟ أكيد مش لازم تكون عنيفة بتقولي أو الورقة بتقول، بس مش بالضرورة ديمقراطية. أكيد لازم يكون في درجات من الشرعية للتحول، بس مش بالضرورة ديمقراطية. على الأقل هذا التساؤل اللي كان لدي وأنا أسمع للجملة، وعذرا للإطالة. المحاضرة الثالثة أو المداخلة الثالثة لأندري كورنيك اللي بيقدم عن Transnational Democracy on Migrant Route، وأندري هو teaches at University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Social Science in Slovenia, and also collaborates in the European Regional Masters Program in Democracy and Human Rights in Southeast Europe in Sarajevo. He's active as an activist. He's involved in struggles for migrant rights. You have the floor, sir.
Have a map of the route. No, this is not Balkan. Sorry, it's not. No, it must be a mistake. This is Scandinavia, right?
Is this the wrong map?
No, this is not. Yeah, this is the wrong map. Yeah. Yeah.
Who has the right map?
Joyce.
Joyce.
Right.
لو سمحتوا جويس تجيب الخارطة الصحيحة. هاي خارطة لمداخلة تاني. جويس, this is the wrong file. I will start.
Okay, so I mean, I will start. I mean, I would just like to have this map so that you will be more familiar.
This is the wrong map.
The site, place, region I'm talking about. So I hope it's going to appear soon. So good morning. Thank you for coming. I would like to talk about transnational democracy on migrant routes, especially on Balkan route. Also because I did some research on the Balkan route, where I was always also active in different solidarity initiatives after, I mean, in 2015 and 2016 when the official route was closed. So for the beginning, I must maybe clarify some things, because yesterday I listened to discussions. I really appreciated them. They were quite political, and I think it's good that they were political. And of course, I could also kind of understand what is the discussion here in Palestine. So I don't want that my intervention would be understood wrongly, that there would be too many ambiguities about this, because of course my presentation goes into the direction that we have to think about democracy also outside the framework of the state and state institutions. And of course when it comes to migration, we are dealing with transnationality and transnational situation. But I think also that we are dealing with practices of grassroots democracy that are really inspiring. So I would just like to say something maybe a bit autobiographic. For a long time as a researcher, a theoretician, also activist, I was involved in the movement of Erased in Slovenia. This was the movement of people that were illegalized in their own homes, were stripped of all of their rights in 92, immediately after Slovenia declared independence. Of course, those were people that were mainly coming from other Yugoslav republics, and you can imagine that becoming illegal meant really like disaster situation for them and disaster conditions for them. And for this reason also, of course, I'm kind of always critical of the national form and the nation state, and also national liberation. And I can, for example, remember the claim in Empire of Harte Negri that national liberation was often poisonous, a poisonous gift. And of course, there's some other things I would like to maybe declare at the beginning. It's also that I'm kind of interested in what does it mean to talk from specific space that is inserted in global hierarchies, in global space, of course, hierarchical space. So I do not claim to speak from any position of universality, but to speak from the site, like hybrid locus of enunciation, as Mignolo calls it. So this is the site which is permitted with differences, which is permitted with inequalities, and only when we kind of reflect on those inequalities, we are able really to speak freely. For this reason, for example, lately I more or less am working on indigenous thought, indigenous political thinking, like in Latin America, where I think that there are some incredible innovations, political innovations taking place that could be interesting in different contexts, maybe also here. And this is kind of very inspiring for me. So let's go now to the topic of my presentation. So transnational democracy and migrant route. So this is the map of the migrant route. So basically this is the route through which around 1 million refugees and migrants crossed to Germany and North Austria, Germany and Scandinavia in 2015. 2016. In 2015 there was like 750,000 people, and then in 2016 around 120 people. These are the Frontex estimations, and you can see that this basically route crosses the territory of former Yugoslavia. So the territory that is now full of small independent states, which are in different ways integrated into European space, into European Union. Some countries are members of the European Union, some countries are waiting to become members, and so forth. And of course, what was interesting to perceive is how this structural position of those individual countries kind of prescribed their attitude toward migrants and refugees that were crossing the border. So my first point is that Balkan Road was catalytic for various political tendencies and processes, and also its existence highlighted some central contradictions of neoliberal globalization, revealed hierarchies of power in the context of emerging post-national spaces as spaces of hierarchical inclusion. So, for example, the route was opened in 2015, so it was kind of officialized, became formal, a humanitarian corridor, and this was due basically to the struggle of refugees and migrants and their supporters that pushed to reach north, and they were stranded in Hungary, and there was huge crisis in Hungary, and then Angela Merkel in a way welcomed refugees from the Balkan route, right? So, and then immediately when this formalized corridor, humanitarian corridor was open, the authorities, the states on the corridor were searching for ways how to normalize it and how to close it down. So this is basically the dynamic around this corridor. And different states had different role in this closing. For example, Macedonia, here on the south, which is in not very good position when it comes to its position in international community, and when it comes to European Union. So Macedonia really kind of seized this opportunity to show that it can be a reliable partner for European Union and can do the dirty job for European Union, in the sense that basically Macedonia was the one that really brutally suppressed the movement of migrants and refugees, while of course the politicians on the north were claiming all the time, you know, that they are interested in human rights, and they want that human rights are respected. But of course, Macedonia was kind of the country that had to do the dirty job for the north. Then there is Serbia. Serbia is a really interesting case, because for Serbia it was an opportunity to present itself as the country that respects human rights and is humanitarian, and was kind of, you know, the question of polishing the image after the wars in the former Yugoslavia. Then we have Slovenia, so my country, you know, and also Slovenia was kind of crucial in closing the Balkan route. So Slovenia was the one that erected the fence, razor blade fence, and this was done one day after President of the Republic, on the extraordinary session of the Parliament, declared that Slovenia should do whatever, regardless the price, to so that Schengen border stays on its southern border and is not moved to the north, to the border between Austria and Slovenia. So basically Slovenia acted out of the fear to be kicked out of Schengen Europe. And of course then, for example, we have Germany, and Germany really used this opportunity to assert itself as being the new leader of the free world. No? So I think it's kind of a lot of cynicism in this situation. But so what we can really see is that the Europe as hierarchical space, or space of hierarchical integration, was really revealed in the on the Balkan route. Of course, to claim that Balkan route suddenly appeared is misleading. Transnational routes as migrant routes does exist, even when they are not in the spotlight. And their existence is as certain as the existence of other transnational spaces. And I would like to maybe sketch the definition how I see transnational spaces. So transnational spaces are the spaces of encounter, of multiplicity that does not have any prior transcendent or essential foundation, They are spaces without absolute authority, defined by plurality of authorities, non-state authorities that affirm themselves in practice and are involved in negotiation with an open end. And I think it's really important when we think about whatever situation or subject in nowadays world, that we have, besides national spaces, spaces of nation states, we also have transnational spaces, and they coexist, and they always basically exist. But of course they are subalternized, because in the European modernity the nation space becomes kind of hegemonic political space. So but the existence of Balkan route, of visible Balkan route, was understood as migration in general in Europe is, as exceptional, as an urgency that has to be dealt with using exceptional means so that normality could be restored again. But what is this normality? A normality that is basically externalization of one of principal contradictions of nowadays Europe and global capitalism. Now, for example, when Balkan road was open and refugees and migrants massively, visibly came into Europe, the violence that basically takes place every day on external border of European Union could be seen in Europe, in the heart of Europe. And of course, this kind of opportunity, for Europe to reflect on its borders, its violent character, and also to start to think about how to democratize European borders. So, but let's go to those contradictions. Now, so one contradiction is, while capital, goods, and services can move freely, movement of people is administered in such a way that hierarchies among populations and labor markets are reproduced and strengthened. I mean, it's kind of obvious thing. I didn't need visa to come here, right? Well, probably Palestinians, cannot go so freely to Europe. So this contradiction is, of course, violence. And as I said before, violence against refugees and migrants on Balkan route was just a temporary image of violence that is taking place daily on the external borders of European Union. Then the other contradiction, also important, is related to dissolution of form of nation. So this dissolution is, of course, the result of capitalist globalization, but also the result of realization that national liberation in anti-colonial struggles turned out to be, as I said before, poisoned gift. So as I see it, and basically I see it from the perspective of the Latin American movement, like indigenous movements. So the establishment of nation state was the only possible and allowed outcome of anti-colonial struggles, although nation state is the result of historical developments in Europe, the result of antagonism between absolute authorities that exercise monopoly over right, force, and cultural expression on designated territory. So being inappropriate for much more diversified and plural realities, nation form often led and leads to intense and sometimes destructive conflicts in the states that free themselves from direct colonial rule, but not from political forms imported from metropolis. And in globalization, even nowadays, Europe becomes ever more post-national, but only to the extent that colonial legacy of unequal and hierarchical global division of labor is preserved. So, as I mentioned, migration is neither new nor extraordinary practice, social practice. It becomes such when populations are supposed to be organized in the form of nation, and when unfree labor for plantation economy had to be efficiently channeled and contained. For example, nowadays, when there is discussion about what to do with migration in Africa, for example, in Africa, migration was always kind of, fact. You can see, for example, I think in Africa and Western Africa and so forth, that this imposition of being locked as populations in the frames of the nation state is extremely violent. Okay, so nevertheless, discourse on migration in Europe is today completely permitted with the idea of exceptionality. But what does it mean? So to treat some social practice as extraordinary is a precondition to establish sovereignty, sovereign power. Probably some of you know Agamben and his theory of the state of exception. And sovereign power in old fashion as foundation of social order on transcendent norm, and also in a new fashion that is theorized today as governance, as the way to define norm upon dealing with extraordinary event in an ad hoc arrangement. So I would define sovereignty therefore as foundation of social order that is not imminent to society but is prior to it, transcendent. It constitutes and reproduces itself by grasping social phenomena as exceptional that demand exceptional measures. It is based on existence of absolute authority that is expressed as monopoly over production of law and force on designated territory and as cultural homogenization. Now, just maybe as a footnote, for example, in Latin America, the struggles of indigenous led to the ideas of the plurality, also legal plurality, that is now inscribed in some constitutions. So the justice system should be not just state-based, but there are more justices, also indigenous justices. And this is like the main struggle nowadays in Latin America. So migrant routes are exceptional for the power that wants to constitute it as sovereign, but they're also exceptional in their own sense. They're extraordinary in another sense, and in theories of the state of exception, exception does not lead only to dictatorial power, but could also be revolutionary and transformative. As sites of encounters of irreducible multiplicity, of encounters with open and where striving hopes, struggles for decent life clash with and articulate with attempts and practices to govern the mobility of people. As sites that avoid sovereignty and where relations are in constant making and remaking. And maybe I would like to just sketch my observations from the Balkan route, and I would like to talk about some, sorry? 2 minutes, okay. So maybe I would just like to talk about some, as I called, hybrid locuses of enunciation. For example, on the Macedonian-Serbian border, what I could perceive is that border is not an obstacle to freedom of movement, but facilitator of the freedom of movement. And this is due to the fact that you have autonomy, Albanian autonomy there, which is the product of the apartheid. No? So they're basically excluded population, and for this reason, this population, kind of have self-defined, self-proclaimed autonomy. So, for example, when we were doing interviews, like a typical statement is, when we have problems, we do not call the police. We negotiate and resolve problems by ourselves. And it's really also related to the practices when refugees and migrants came, because the existence of refugees and migrants on the border was an opportunity for different ad hoc authorities there to put into practice socio-economic model in which solidarity and prohibition of inequalities are internal to it. So refugees and migrants were not treated as helpless victims or as menace, but as agents in the process of mutual relocation of resources. So concrete practices were to negotiate and implement conditions of mobility, defining maximum price of transportation, prevention of profiteering, prevention of state monopoly over transportation, and so forth. And of course, there were also discussions with different state authorities and negotiations. And what I could see there is what we have basically is highly transnationalized space. This space is defined by massive immigration around Europe, relations with Middle Eastern societies due to Islam, legacy of separate development because of the apartheid in post-Yugoslav Serbia, and then legacy of non-alignment movement and so forth. Now, so just one side, and I don't have time to talk about others, but which really shows that what exists is kind of these transnational situations that in the time of the Balkan route turn out to be crucial and a real obstacle for authorities to formalize the corridor and to close it down, to suppress it. No? For example, Serbia never managed to formalize the corridor basically because of the situation on the border. And of course, more north we go, we have other instances of autonomy, like, you know, the relationship between activists, different no-border activists, and migrants and refugees. Okay, so maybe just to conclude with more maybe theoretical remarks. So these transnational spaces also exist in theory and in conceptual production. No? So I would just mention, of course, if we are going to work on those papers and we're going to publish them, then there's going to be opportunity to read about this. For example, in European modernity, you have this alternative to understanding of the evolution of the state and the statehood, let's say. For example, in Spinoza, according to Spinoza, to have political community, you don't need to transfer rights and power to sovereign, right? So, for example, this is Spinoza, and for Spinoza, the multitude is sufficient condition to have political life, to have political community. So plurality of will does not need to be transformed into the unity of will, which is people, right? And the powers and rights do not need to be transferred to sovereign. But of course, these alternatives do not exist only in the European modernity. Let's not be Eurocentric, right? For example, again, in other metaphysics, cosmovision, so for example, De Castro is talking about Indian metaphysics, and he was working on Amazonia. No? He really showed that there is a different way of conceptualizing. No? So maybe I will just conclude with this. So for De Castro, Western metaphysics is obsessed with ground difference, with what separates humans from non-humans and moderns from the other. And it thinks extensive difference, and this Western metaphysics, as he described this, is, according to De Castro, fin and origo, so the source of colonialism. And then you have indigenous savage metaphysics, which presupposes human immanence, and the difference is understood as intensive, which means that we are not dealing with plurality of cultures, but plurality in culture. The differences are not due to different representations of the same given and objective reality. According to indigenous cosmology and ontology, reality is not given, but submitted to agency. It is understood as affective multiplicity, so basically relational, which is experienced by bodies. Reality, therefore, is not represented but experienced, and those bodies as all things, because human bodies are not separate from other bodies in nature, on socio-spiritual continuity are points of view. And communication and comparison happened as different points of view mutually contaminate and transform. So if we understand differences as intensive and internal communication takes place on the border, difference is preconditions for it, and it is mutually transformative. And for example, this really is today find in the definition of intercultural societies among indigenous movement in Latin America. So this is one case, but you know, there are a lot of cases like this, you know, but I would just like to say that probably in every locality, you know, there is a source in the history, in social practices, you know, that could be really used to conceptualize and envision other democratic development. So I hope that we can discuss about this. And as I said, I know that maybe just to,
we are way beyond that 20 minutes.
I know. Yeah, sorry.
So I'll leave it for the discussion.
Yeah, okay.
We say that I believe most of us, we are sensitive to what you mentioned about the plurality of authorities, illegality and its impact on people, the way the state of exception become the normality for migrants. So I think we will have lots of I hope discussion on this. Let me just add to what you said, that how you felt free to come here without visa, and you know that this is not the same thing for us Palestinians to go to Europe. I would add, it's not the same even to go freely to Jerusalem, or even to Gaza, or let's say Bethlehem. So it's even that narrow space is under complete restriction. Thank you very much. And now let's have خلينا ناخذ إذا المنظمين بيسمحوا لنا 10 دقايق من البريك. فأنا مدير المنظمين، فبنقدر نقول 10 دقايق للأسئلة، وإذا في بعض الأسئلة ما بنقدر نحكيها هلا بلكن بالبريك تكملوا مع المتحدثين. بس تعطوني إشارة عشان أعرف أوزع. اللي حابب يطرح أي سؤال يعطيني إشارة. تفضل الميكروفون. في حد بعده بحب على اساس نعرف حالنا؟ يعطوني اشاره اثناء ما هو بيحكي وبقدر احولكم الميكروفون. تفضل استاذ. اذا ممكن تعرف بنفسك وتحكي لمين السؤال موجه.
اسمي محمود زياد. السؤال موجه لاي حدا بحب يجاوب من المتحدثين الثلاثه. حابب اتاكد اذا انا فهمت من يعني في شيء متقاطع بالمداخلات الثلاثه، انه موضوع حقوق الانسان الاساسيه وعلى ضوء التجربه انه يجب الا ترتبط بالخلاص من الاستعمار، وانه او ما بعد الثوره، سواء كانت الثورة اجتماعية أو ثورة ضد الاستعمار. كأني فهمت هذا بالحديث عن ما يجري في جنوب أفريقيا، وكمان بمداخلة روان، وبموضوع المهاجرين والديمقراطية. بحب أتأكد إذا هذا الاستنتاج في محله، وإنه إذا هذا كمان بيعني درس مستفاد للفلسطينيين بأنهم ما يأجلوا مسألة الكرامة والحقوق إلى ما بعد الخلاص من الاستعمار، اللي ولربما انه ضرورة التمسك بحقوق الانسان وبالكرامة في كل ظرف وفي كل حين، ولربما يكون الامساك بذلك باعتباره ناموسا، قيمة عليا مرتبطة بالعدالة، وفي حالتنا ربما تؤسس وتعزز الصمود للخلاص من الاستعمار. والقول بأنه هاي الحكاية بعدين أو وقتها ليس الآن، أي ما بعد الخلاص من الاستعمار، قد تساعد في تعزيز الاستعمار، أو وفي أحسن الحالات استبدال استعمار باستعمار آخر، وحينها الأمر ينتفي وفي هنا انفصام وتناقض في الهدف من الثورة. الهدف من الثورة والخلاص من الاستعمار أو حتى الثورة الاجتماعية هي من أجل الكرامة والحقوق والعدالة والمساواة. هل هذا الاستنتاج في مكانه؟ شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا على المداخلة. في حد بحب يطرح أي سؤال قبل أحول الميكروفون؟ تفضل أستاذ.
صباح الخير، إبراهيم ربايعة. هون برجع لورقة الدكتور بلال. في إشكالية نظرية أصلا بتعريف العنف ثوريا، وحجم ودرجة العنف وتدرجه وطريقة استخدامه. فصعب انه ندخل لهذا الموضوع لهي الورقة بدون تعريف العنف في الحالة اللي بنعالجها. ايضا الثورة هي عملية متدحرجة، عملية زي ما حكى الدكتور عاصم تبدأ برغبة بتغيير شيء قائم، لكن تسير وتتطور أهدافها ورؤيتها مع تطور الثورة، وبالتالي من الصعب الحكم على نهايتها من البدايات. أيضا الحديث عن النموذج الكوري. النموذج الكوري كان نموذج معقد. السلطوية اللي كانت موجودة في كوريا في عهد الرئيس بارك أيضا كانت سلطوية تسمح بهامش من التربية الديمقراطية اللي ولدت قاعدة انطلق المجتمع بعد رحيل الرئيس إلى ديمقراطية بشكلها الحالي. أيضا السؤال الإشكالي والسؤال النظري: ما هو الثمن الواجب دفعه من أجل الحصول على الديمقراطية؟ وهذا سؤال مفتوح وسؤال يعالجه الباحثين حتى اللحظة، ولا يوجد إجابة واضحة وراسخة لهذا الموضوع. هل الهدف فقط الديمقراطية أم الديمقراطية يجب أن ربما تحكم بالأثمان التي تدفع بها وبعملية مرحلية؟ شكرا.
Hello, Roger Hiccup. I'd like to ask Mr. Piaget Atua, which are the 6 countries that have managed to achieve or to maintain liberal democratic constitutions in Africa in the last period, and are there commonalities between them?
أي أسئلة أخرى؟ ممكن أنا أطرح سؤال أندري. Just to give you the opportunity to go ahead with what you had in mind. I have a question. What you mentioned as democracy shouldn't be state-centered, especially when we talk about migrants as a transnational movement. And I'm interested to know what do you mean by having this democratizing this process of dealing with migrants as transnational movement, when democracy in practice led to reactions which is the complete opposite of opening borders. You know, in elections in various countries in Europe, it's the extreme right or the right who are winning floor. So what do you mean by democratizing the process when we deal with transnational movement if it is not related to election in the country states that we refer to? Let's start 2 minutes with the last presentation, then Rawan, then Abhay. Yeah. Go ahead, Andre. You have 2 minutes.
Maybe I could, kind of join those 2 questions. What gentleman there asked. Yeah, I think that you should not wait, until you have a state to have democracy, because our experience is that with the state, you even have less democracy, at the end. So it's not to have state, it's not precondition to have democracy, especially if you are in the struggle liberation struggle, you need to have democracy because you need to have base support, you know, for the struggle. I know many cases. Followed. I've been there. For example, like the Zapatistas in Mexico, which is also like a national liberation struggle of new generation, where you find the level of democracy which is unseen in Europe and in the nation states, you know, and this is something that gives them the power, no? And then, of course, when it comes to the question of migration, no, yeah, surely, I mean, when you don't have democracy that is tied to the existence of citizenship, no, and the nation state, you have kind of a complicated situation. You can then understand democracy only as a practice, no? So it's not really like a voting democracy, no? Where you can see it is, you know, in a way, how through encounters, you know, people basically address basic issues like, you know, hierarchies, you know, how they kind of include, you know, all possible sensibilities, you know, and how they build the power together. I think this is, you know, kind of when it comes, I mentioned before Spinoza, no? For Spinoza, right is always the expression of the power of the multitude, no? So we really have to build this power, you know, to have right. And yeah, so, but of course it's a complex thing because in the movement, you know, also it was huge solidarity in the former Yugoslavia. For example, only in Croatia, there were 600 volunteers, 24 hours working outside formal organization, you know, like being solidar with refugees and migrants. And of course, it's a big question what to do now, right? Are you going to institutionalize this? You know, and this is the discussion, yeah, that we have today. You know, how are we going to institutionalize, so to give more kind of a stability to those new practices of democracy?
اوكي. أنا خليني أبلش بالبداية تفضلت فيه دكتور عاصم. يعني بعتقد إنه الورقة كانت واضحة. أنا بتفق معك. لم نتحدث عن ديمقراطية في عملية التحول، لأنه بالأساس حكينا أنه عملية التحول بيئتها غير ديمقراطية، وبالتالي لن نطالب أو يكون مطلوب منا استخدام أدوات ديمقراطية في عملية التحول. وإذا كان الديمقراطية هي هدف أو أداة، فهذا كمان هو السؤال اللي يمكن بتقوم عليه الورقة كلها، أو بيقوم عليه حتى مداخلات كل الأوراق في المؤتمر. بالنسبة للوضع القائم وما سيكون عليه، أنا بدي أعطي مثال تاني دكتور عاصم غير المثال اللي حكيته عن الجو الإيسي. الضفدع اللي كان على الطبق اللي تحته درجة حرارة عالية، اللي كل ما كانوا يزيدوا درجة الحرارة يصير ينط أكثر ويصير ينط أسرع، لأنه هو ما عنده وعي إيش اللي بيصير معه. هو مش مميز إنه الحرارة عم بتزيد. لو كان مميز إنه الحرارة بتزيد كان فورا وعنده أدوات إنه بقفز لبرا وبيخلص حاله من الموضوع، لأنه ما كان بيعرف شو الوضع القائم، ضله محله وما طلع لبرا. اللي بدي احكيه او اللي حكته هاي الورقه انه الوعي بالوضع القائم، يعني نعرف انه احنا في مرحله تغيير مش مرحله ديمقراطيه. مش اذا سقط النظام لما نزلنا على الشارع انه مطالبين بسقوط النظام، اذا سقط فاحنا صرنا ديمقراطيين. هاي عمليه تغيير وعمليه تحول بنمر فيها بهاي الفتره. الوعي بالوضع ما سيكون عليه هو امتلاكنا لادوات التحول الديمقراطي، ونكون قادرين على استخدامها او مؤهلين او عندنا الوعي لاستخدامها. مداخلة أستاذ إبراهيم عن تعريف العنف، أنا حكيت بتجاوز الجدل اللغوي أو عدة تعريفات وذكرت التعريف المتفق عليه. وبالنسبة لتجربة كوريا، طبعا تجربة معقدة ولكن يستفاد منها في لما بنحكي عن عمليات التحول الديمقراطي تحديدا، في انه في كان عندهم تعود وتذوق للديمقراطيه وفي عندهم تنشئه على الديمقراطيه. وانا في الورقه حكيت او حكى دكتور بلال، انا نقلت ما حكى او ما قالوا في الورقه، انه يعني اذا بدنا نغير الوضع ويصير في عندنا معرفه للديمقراطيه مش بقرار ولكن بعمليه تنشئه وتربيه. فانا بتفق معك تماما. شكرا.
Thank you very much. With respect to the first question on whether the relationship between human rights and whether a country is independent or not, I'll add to what Andre has said and say that it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference. Human rights are violated by states, and the duty is on the state, whether as a colonial entity or as an independent entity. So at the end of the day, we also need to recognize the fact that when colonialism ends, it doesn't end there. When you look at post-colonialism, the colonial authority still has its imprints, especially in the economic sectors. And therefore, when profit comes into the picture, when multinational corporations and so on still have a say in how the country is run economically, there are issues or clashes with how the people's rights should be respected. And so human rights is a daily struggle, and it continues whether an entity is under occupation, whether it's under colonial rule or not. And so I think that what is important is that we begin to build a culture of human rights which is based on our understanding of human rights. And therefore, when we are independent or when we have the freedom, we will be able to use that as a foundation to build on, whereby we can have a lasting form of human rights based or which is in consonant with the local circumstances of our people, based on the culture, based on the history, based on the development. On the question of which countries are more democratic in Africa, excuse me, well, I can identify among others Mauritius, Botswana, Cape Verde, South Africa, Ghana, Tunisia, Senegal, among others. And the indicators are based, among others, on a level of respect for human rights. We also talk about stable changes in government. When a government loses power, it just concedes and a new regime comes into place. Then pluralism in terms of allowing tolerance for various political actors, whether governmental or non-governmental, the media, to be able to challenge authority. Civil society activism is also well respected. Then I also add judicial independence, where the government respects the decisions of the judiciary, where appointment of the judiciary is not influenced by the executive, and so on. So I think that these are some of the commonalities or indicators which you can find among these countries that are deemed to be more democratic on the continent.
Thank you very much. شكرا للمتحدثين وشكرا لاستماعكم، ونغلق الجلسة ونلقاكم بالجلسة القادمة بعد 10 دقائق. شكرا.